I thought in today's roundtable, typically we go around the room in order, but I thought today, I think the way we'll start is we'll ask the entrepreneurs to begin by talking about themselves, and then we'll bring in the bankers and financial assistance people, so you can kind of respond and talk about what you've heard. But to begin with, we obviously want you to introduce yourselves. Tell us a little bit about your company. I'm going to start with you, Ashlyn.
Okay.
Tell us a little bit about your company, what you do, when you went into business, what you provide, and just give us a little introduction, and then we will move over to DeShawn, Lisa, and Terrell, and then I'm going to ask the other people, Matthew from Valley Partners, and Juan from Farmers, and Lisa from Consumers, to feed back and talk about how they might be able to assist your businesses. So let's start with Ashlyn. Ashlyn.
Yeah.
All right, let's start with Ashlyn.
Okay. Well, good morning, everybody. My name is Ashlyn Symone. I'm the owner of Symone Brand Design Studio, located right downtown in Youngstown.
Hold on, talking too fast.
I'm talking too fast. I got a habit of that. Okay.
It's okay. That's okay.
So, but yeah, I'm the owner of Signatures Brand Design Studio, located right down in Youngstown. We're a full-service marketing agency. So when I say that, we do everything from graphics to print and production to strategy to apparel and everything that you may need for your marketing portfolio. Pretty much a brand management company. So we've been in business. We're coming up on 4 years here soon. So we've actually just looking to expand in our business as well. So Q4, we've got a lot of exciting things coming up. And that's about it in a nutshell. I can go on and on, but that's pretty much it that we do in a nutshell.
Great. DeShawn?
Hi, I'm DeShawn Scott. First, I want to thank the Journal for allowing us to be here. I really appreciate that. But my name is DeShawn Scott. I'm the founder and CEO of the D5 Group. We're based in Warren, Ohio. We're a marketing management and creative services firm. So we deal with what I call big M and little M marketing, which is big M is strategic and tactical marketing. Little M is more so like websites, if you will, things like that. We've been around. This is our 10-year anniversary. We just relocated in downtown Warren, so we moved from the Bright building over to the Huntington building, more space. And we also have the Sound United Podcast Studio, which is a turnkey for individuals to come in, or businesses or nonprofits to come in and produce content. And then finally, we have a community podcast with that we amplify unsung community heroes called Sound United Presents.
Interesting. Lisa?
Hello, I'm Lisa Robinson. My company is named Showstopper Landscaping, and I started in 2014. I'm still working on my business. I do landscaping, I do the flowers, the trees, and then I do blooms and flowers. And now I'm trying to get my greenhouse, and I'm adding that to it, a commercial greenhouse, so I can excel a little bit more. But I've been doing pretty good. I did 32 yards so far this year. Still got a long list. Got to push through it, but I'm there. But that's who I am, Showstopper Landscaping, 3514 Market Street. Yep. So I'm hoping the grand opening will be next year. I'm doing pop-ups now, like on holidays I do it, but I'm doing landscaping all through the years and stuff. I'll start with removing snow this year. So that's been added to me, and my son's going to help me. So that's what I'm trying to do. That's what I have been doing since 2014, working on that old building I got for $1.
On South Avenue.
No,
What's the
Market
address?
Street.
On Market Street, that's
The
right.
old Berkeley's Flower Shop.
Yeah.
They said I couldn't, but I did.
Okay, Terrell.
Terrell Washington, owner and founder of Leaf Relief. Operate dispensaries and manufacturing facilities in the cannabis space in Ohio and in New Jersey now.
Oh, and tell us about your business.
Yeah.
I could repeat the joke, and why you didn't bring any samples, but
Yeah. Legally, I'm not allowed to till September. But so started off as medical cannabis dispensaries. We were the 19th dispensary to open in the state, the first Black-owned dispensary to open in the state of Ohio, the last of the original independents from RFA 1. So got in It was a dream since 2016, realized what was coming with the legislature, and the previous amendments had failed on the ballot. So started off as medical, expanded from one dispensary to adding manufacturing facility. Now I have a second dispensary in Reynoldsburg outside of Columbus, as well as one in Plainfield, New Jersey. And then in 25, probably early 25, we'll add a location in Austintown.
You know, we probably should have asked before we went to the financial people, we probably should ask you to tell us some of the challenges you have faced in getting your business going. What? Oh, I forgot Kelan. Okay, I'm sorry.
It's all right.
All right, well, you go for it.
Kelan Bilal, owner of Excalibur Barber, Grooming Lounge inside the Southern Park Mall, also in Girard. We've been in business for 11 years now in the Southern Park Mall, and first black-owned barbershop within the mall, longest tenured minority business in the mall. So I don't know. I have a few different things. So nonprofit, which is Grooming University, also now am the chair of Respect Foundation. So we do a lot of community work outside of what we do as far as barbering.
So challenges that you faced,
Challenges is a daily challenge. So
but as a minority businessman.
as a minority business. So, firstly, going into the mall was one of the biggest challenges, like to know that it had never been done, how people were going to accept us out there. And it definitely was a challenge watching people walk past daily. Like, you could hear the talk of, oh, wow, that's a black business, a black barbershop inside of the mall, like never seen it. But overcoming that was one of the things that we wanted to do, because the purpose was to bring diversity to what the mall was already. We were a group of barbers, young, very zealous barbers, very good at what we do, and we wanted to be able to challenge ourselves and go into a market that nobody expected us to be in.
So is it something that, have white people started coming to your shop, or is it still pretty segregated?
So we've always, as far as the barber group that I was with, we've always had a few white patrons and all that, and that was the reason why we wanted to make that challenge, to be able to go out there and prove that, this isn't just a black establishment that cuts black hair. And of course, we don't call it black hair. It's normally coarse, curly hair. Doesn't have a race or ethnicity. So we wanted to prove that we can cut anything that sits in our chair, and people could be comfortable coming to us, because that's always been the challenge. Like, if you go into a black barbershop versus white barbershop, it was segregated, and we wanted to bring that. And
Have you succeeded?
100%. 100%. Now, not only from the patrons or the clients that come in, but our staff. Like, we came in with white, Puerto Rican, black, female, and we wanted to prove that we can do this all together. So, and it has succeeded. So that's been a challenge, but I like taking those type of risks. So.
Did you want to speak on your challenges?
Sure. I believe that in my course as an entrepreneur, and even a little bit when I was in corporate America, I feel like as a minority business owner, and just as in a minority period, I mean, I'm young, I'm black, and I'm a woman. So there's always been an aspect of stand up taller, speak up louder, which is i.e. why I'm always somewhere flamboyant and some pink and purple and something else, because I've learned to, in a sense, command a presence, when I'm in a room, especially when I'm in networking events where I am the minority and I'm the only little thing that sticks out in there. I try to make sure that I'm seen on an equal level, but I think that it had to be something that was done intentionally a lot of times and in a lot of spaces. So when it comes to when I operate in business. Not only am I a minority as a business owner, but I'm a minority in my industry. I'm in print, and women are not the dominant in print. And then at the same time, too, I'm not on the level of where when I began, I was more of a crafter and I was just making t-shirts for birthday parties and all that stuff too. But now we've obtained so many more larger contracts to where I'm in an industry where my competitors are the big guys. I'm in competition with FedEx, Office Max, Staples, anywhere you can go get prints and copies, anywhere that you can, design and go and get those things manufactured. Those are who I'm up against now. So there's always had to be a level of confidence, which I think that and maybe it's just one of those things that I was born with because I've always been a loudmouth. I've always been stand-up tall. I've always been that person. I've always been a leader. I've always been class clown. I've always been that person. But if it's something that it wasn't innate in me, I don't know how much how confident I would have been stepping into this sector of business on my own. So that's just one thing that I also encourage when I do mentorship with young girls, make yourself known, have a nice firm handshake, know what you're saying when you speak. Even if you don't know, it's okay to admit, you're wrong for stuff sometimes. So that's really something that I had to learn as I grew in my career at all period, but also as an entrepreneur. So I just had to make sure that I'm very intentional in a lot of the things that I do because a lot of times it's kind of like eyes are on you to see what are you going to do. Are you going to sink or swim?
Well, DeShawn, I guess we'll go with you next.
So challenges that I faced, and I was wheeling up for this one. This was probably my favorite questions, but I would say as a minority business, perception, and that comes on both sides. So that comes from the side of what I like to say, what we say, some of us small business owners, minority business owners, coffee table conversation, our own people, because the expectation is that, we're not at the level of the professional level of a, let's just say, white-owned business or established business, right? We're not as qualified to do what we have to do. The other one on that side of our own people is, and some of us can relate to this, your prices are too high. Well, what do you mean our prices are too high? We've done our research. This is the market rate or the discount or the lack of support. When I started my business, I was like, Black people gonna come support me. If you look at our portfolio, it is nothing like that. And that's okay, right? Money is green. I'm in business not to be, a magnet to just deal with people of color. You know what I mean? I like to work with all people. So I'm very diverse in that. So there's that side. The other side of that perception is dealing with everything from our suppliers, perhaps, or maybe some financial establishments, and none of them are in here, by the way, I'll say that. That the very notion of the minority business, the minority word is it hurts a little bit too. There's a reason why it's there, like the state does. The state has programs and there's all these different programs for minority businesses. But that's also like a double-edged sword for us because the expectation is, I remember I had this meeting and I brought some paperwork and they were like asking me elementary questions like, do you have a marketing plan or, but it was just the way it was said. And I'm like, yeah, here you go. Here you go. Have you ever had a CPA? Yeah, I had a CPA for 5. It's just these questions. And I don't know if you have to be in the skin that some of us are in to understand it, but it's just how they ask you these questions as if to say you just woke up and wanted to start a business. And so that perception hits on both sides. So for me, it's been like our own people. And then it's been dealing with like established places where, from vendors and even customers and things like that. The second one would be like convenient outreach. And I'm just going to throw that in there because I have to be candid with this. Sometimes I think a lot of us, we get invited to the table, I joke, February and June. And it's funny because I keep a CRM and I, put contact information when I had a last call, and I'll get this call at the end of, it'd be the end of January or the end of May, like, hey, DeShawn, how's it going? Haven't talked in a while. In my head, I'm like, yeah, it hasn't been the same time last year. We're doing this event, and, that's the only time. So you're never invited to have a conversation about economic development just for a broad range. You're invited to these certain things, whether it's just pure and intentional or whether it's because, well, we need that. You know what I mean? And these are just things I went through. So I'm not saying everybody is like that and continue to go through it. And then the last one, of course, I would say is probably information distribution. And what I mean by that, sometimes as a minority business, we're the last to find out information about certain opportunities. I'll never forget this. About 3 years ago, there was an RFP that came down, and I got a phone call, excited. I was telling my late wife, "Oh, we're about to tear this up and do this." So I'm on this call, and they said, "You got a week and a half to get it into us." And I said, "Well, when did it come out?" "Oh, a little short of a month ago." And I won't use the word that I wanted to use because it's a public record. But it was the first of many times where it felt like I was just invited because of a quota, because of some type of qualification. And that, those are the things to me, like if you like real hard conversations that really, as my Southern cousin says, get my back up a little bit. So that's some of the things that I face.
Well, I'm glad we didn't hold this in February.
Yeah, but it is Black Business Month. But y'all are always, and like I said, there's nobody in this room. I said before that I rock with the Business Journal. Y'all have always been just
Well,
inclusive. in many
I get
things.
it. I get it. And one of the reasons why we're having this is because we don't have enough diversity in our paper. And we need to hear this. Lisa, tell us.
Yes. It is a challenge. I mean, and for me as being a woman and being a landscaper, I get challenged because if I have guys working me, they try to challenge me. But it's hard. I mean, it's like you never get enough funds for what you got to do. You get a little bit to throw you here and throw you there, but you still got to keep on what you got to do to make it and stuff. And then they'll tell you they'll help you with something and you never get the amount they tell you. It's always lesser or not enough. So I do 2 or 3 jobs to do what I gotta do. But it's a challenge because I work with kids that has problems. So you get them good, you get them bad. Then you work with people coming out of jail. You work with them. Some work good, some don't. So there's challenges with that because you try to pay them fair, then you pay them more and they still don't do nothing. I end up doing the most, like always. But it's a challenge, but it's a good challenge though. But you just gotta keep knocking at those doors till you get where you gotta go. It's not easy, but it's worth it. When y'all say, you just gotta have hope and faith and just keep at it. I've been at it since 2014, and it's almost there, but it's just never enough.
I would say it's always almost there in business.
You keep doing and keep doing and keep working and keep working, you'll get there. But I feel if people would help us more, we could get there quicker, where we wouldn't have to struggle as much. Well, I know I have for 10 years on,
And you're talking about financing and
yes,
credit.
it's never enough.
We'll get back to that. Terrell?
For me, it's a little unique in the industry I'm in now, just because I can't borrow money. It's still federally illegal. So there's no borrowing money. So in the most recent endeavors, it's been, okay, everything I make is going right back out the door because I have to pay in cash. Or it's, okay, banks shutting down accounts because they know what you do. And I'm like, okay, you're engaged. Even though I myself, and if you come in, I can help you pick out what you want, but I can't ring you out because then I would be engaged in a federally illegal activity. And so then even just the expenses of the business, I can't expense a vehicle. I can't expense my labor like a normal person can because it's no different than drug dealing until they finally reschedule. So myself, security, are the only people who can count as a traditional employee. So we have a completely separate tax code than every other American business. So it makes it a whole lot more difficult. And then for the first 2.5 years, you can pay in cash. There was only 2 banks in the state that would take dispensary money or cannabis money. Ironically enough, one was on an Air Force base. But so those expenses in the industry make things more difficult. And I think there's always been a taboo with cannabis, even though it's intertwined into American history. I mean, the Betsy Ross flag was made of hemp. It was one way you could get out of going to World War II was the Hemp for Victory Act, but we pretended like it hasn't been good for America. So those difficulties, but I think us being medical first has helped because of how many people we were helping really improve quality of life, end of life treatment. Has made it difficult, but there's always the things that everybody else has spoken to are there for all of us. It's tough to get into the room. It's tough to have a qualified voice in those rooms. You wonder if it is because of the quota. In some cases, is it we don't value you as a minority, but we value your money. So that's another thing that comes into it. And I understand that I'm in a unique situation where my socioeconomic status that I've inherited and then earned insulates me a little bit. But there are a lot of people who can't speak up because of the financial impact if they do. I've been very fortunate by my industries. McDonald's isn't going to go out of business. People are always going to need medicine. So I can because, all right, what are you going to do? You're not going to shut down my business. You can't. But that's not the case for 99% of us. So they can't speak up and advocate for themselves in many cases because of the fear of the repercussions. When I spoke up 2 weeks ago, the fact that there were no RFA1 Black-owned dispensaries open on day one of recreational sales in the state of Ohio, got tons of calls and had to go to battle with the state and then had to reach out to all of the allies. And they didn't realize because of, serving on the chamber and in other relationships, it's no, you can't bully this person. But there are 10 other stories that day where somebody has been bullied because they are not protected and they spoke up and spoke and advocated for themselves or someone else.
Now let's go back. Are you saying that on the first day, no Black-owned dispensaries were open?
So there were 0 RFA1 Black-owned dispensaries. So all your original Black-owned dispensaries who got licenses back in 2018, all of the OGs from 2018 who were the first in the state, none of them were allowed to open on day one.
Why not?
That's a question for Jim Canepa, Director Maxfield. Those are questions that they would have to answer. I don't like to argue intent. I'd like to defer to the math. And I challenge to give me a mathematical model that none of the original 60 dispensary operators, of them, none of the original Black ones were allowed to open on day one. And then they're allowed to the day after.
So you were allowed the day after?
The day after. But the financial impact
Exactly.
and the PR impact of not being there on day one is huge.
Wow.
I could pay for a GM for a year just off of losing that day.
So let's go to the bankers. Let's start with Juan. What do you say to all these challenges? How can your bank help, and does it?
Okay, well, did you want to hear a little bit about my role first, or do you just want to jump right into?
You can start however you would like.
Just want to make sure.
Let's talk about your role, because that is how you deal with the challenges.
Okay, right. So I have a history, or my background is in residential lending. I'm with Farmers National Bank. So for 20 years, I helped people secure homes and have access to capital to whether to build, buy, or refinance their homes. In the last 6-7 years, I've worked in the space of community development, which is pertinent to this conversation. So I help in the areas of, I don't know how familiar people are with CRA, but it stands for the Community Reinvestment Act. So that was enacted by Congress in 1977 to ensure that capital was accessible, or banks were meeting the credit needs of their communities, inclusive of low to moderate income. So not ethnicity or race or color driven, but as a result of, there was what's called redlining, where there were certain areas that maybe banks weren't lending to. So that law was enacted to ensure that we're meeting the needs of the entire community. So consequently, of those, there's 3 areas that comprise of CRA, and there's a lending component, a service, and an investment piece. Pertinent to this conversation, the lending piece is what we're doing to make affordable housing accessible to everyone, loans to small businesses and small farms, and then community development loans. So as far as the challenges, what I've picked up on with what everyone shared, there's a mentorship component. I think that it's key for anybody going into, inclusive of minorities, if you're getting into something, look at someone who's doing it and doing it well, and then have that person help guide you along the way. I mean, we hear about life coaches in today's society. And so it's really germane that individuals see someone, whether it's Terrell or Ashley or Kelan, Lisa, Ashley? Lynn, okay, and DeShawn, who are doing it and doing it well, and they've been able to navigate through the system. Are we as lenders, when we sit down, I always look at it as consultative in nature. It's, we want to see businesses succeed because it's win-win, not only for the business and for the community, but for the bank as well, because we're looking to lend the money. And so, and as they grow, then we grow in the relationship. But it's really, mentorship is key. DeShawn alluded to opportunity, and it's showing that there's a level of excellence that you guys are putting out in the businesses that you have, or like with Kelan at the mall. But hey, it's not just for Black or brown or whatever other minority that may fall into that area. It could be a woman-owned business, but it's saying, you know what? We have a standard like everyone else. My skin color may be different, but let me show you. And sometimes you have to work a little harder. We understand, twice as hard sometimes, or if not even more than that. But it's really being that advocate for these businesses and supporting them to say, hey, you know what, they've made it. Now they've paved the road for others who are coming down the line. Access to capital. There is legislation. Until the legislators have a change in heart, you're going to deal with those challenges. And I can't speak to that because I'm not the legislator and I don't make the decision. But it's really incumbent upon us to, when someone comes, whether it's working with the Valley Partners, with Matthew, and how they have programs that are available to help. There's one program I speak of, and it's called EDGE, and it stands for Economically Disadvantaged Growing Entrepreneurs. So geared towards minority and women-owned businesses. And so it's really bringing that to light. Again, is that lender, whether it's farmers or consumers or any other bank that's going to help these individuals start their business, grow their business, and continue to expand, are we educating them? And that's really the key component that I think of anything. People don't know what they don't know. So if in fact we can educate them in this space, connect them with somebody who's going to take them under their wing and say, hey, I want to help you to grow, then I think it's going to bode well for everybody who follows them down the line.
Well, that brings us to Matthew.
Yes, so thank you again for having me. Matthew Longmire, and I serve as the business resource manager at Valley Economic Development Partners. And housed inside Valley Partners is our Business Resource Center and also our Minority Business Assistance Center. So what makes up Valley Partners, we have 18 different loan programs. So we specialize in small business lending. So we have 18 different loan programs. So when clients come to us, depending on that asking amount, the purpose in which it serves, and also the location of their business, that would determine which of the 18 programs they will fall into. It's an honor to be here because at the table are some of our bankers on our loan committee. Our loan committee is very diverse with Vicki and Juan. So we really help our clients get the capital to their business. And based upon the conversation and also some of the things that I've noticed is, like Juan alluded to, access to capital. But a step further is what I've been hearing a lot, how our community have been underfunded with their projects. For example, if a client, they really needed let's just say 20,000, but they were only approved for 10. They had to accept the 10 because some capital at that time was better than no capital. But then by accepting that underfunded capital, they were then behind the 8 ball. So that's one of the things we provide at Valley Partners is that free technical assistance. It's all free. But what Juan alluded to, that mentorship, we walk with our clients to say, hey, what do you need? How much resources do you need? And then provide those quotes to back it up, because we want to provide a very strong loan packet. So when we do come to committee, we can't guarantee, but only thing that we can guarantee is we will be in the best position to give you the resources that you need to grow. I always say this, for a plant to fully grow, it needs water, sunlight, it needs all of the proper resources to grow. Like a business, it needs the resources, it needs the money. If it doesn't have the proper resources, it won't fully grow until it's meant to be. Like a plant, it needs to all have the proper resources to grow, just like a business. So here at Valley Partners, we make sure our clients have all the proper resources to grow for them to be successful.
Vicki?
Yes, I'm Vicki Hall from Consumers National Bank, and I've been a business development officer, commercial lender for about 13 years, been in banking for 40 plus years, so I've seen a lot. And as a woman, I have also seen some disparities. You know, I was the first woman lender at the first bank that I worked at, and that was a big deal back in the day. Now it's commonplace, but I look at what I do as consultative, so to speak. If a client comes to me, I try to advise them, connect them with the resources. Matthew's group. We have a group in Salem. It's called the Sustainable Opportunity Development Corporation. I work with Julie Needs a lot there. Someone comes in, they have a dream, they have a vision. And then I start talking to them. Do you have a business plan? You know, do you have projections? No, I don't. I said, well, I can connect you to somebody who will help you, and free of charge. Those services are free of charge. And I feel it's part of my role to direct my clients to those resources and to help them. And then when they're prepared, and Matthew does the same thing through the Valley Partners, I can send clients to him and he helps them develop those concrete plans so that the client is prepared to come to me to request financing. And, you know, I think you need a good attorney, you need a good CPA. All those things are things that I try to advise my clients to utilize. You know, get the best support underneath you that you can. When I look at a client, I never look at them as a minority or whatever. I try to offer them the best options that I can and help them to be successful, because, as Juan said, when they're successful, we're successful. It's a partnership. Our bank philosophy is we don't want to just make you a loan. We want to develop a relationship with you. We want to see you grow and be successful. And, you know, so that's really what we do. I just want to help people.
Any feedback from the panelists before I ask another question?
I will. I think that, so not seeing them as a minority, the statement comes from a good place, but I think that there is value in seeing them as minorities because of the additional challenges that they face. That is just the nature of it. That whether it is they're there because they can't go to other places, or they may not have the resources, or not be told, like we've heard in many cases, of the opportunities as a result of whether it be race or network, or there's a multitude of factors. So I think it's important to see the whole story, because that's a part of every single one of our stories is where we come from, and not just the race, but the culture as well. If you were to bring somebody in who graduated from Yale versus someone who graduated from somewhere else, your approach may be different, or the conversation pieces may be different because of that person's experiences. And so I think that's what being able to see all of someone and not shying away from seeing all that someone is allows us to have more honest conversations, and more honest conversations make for more constructive conversations in my experience.
Terrell, you alluded earlier to the fact that that there was some generational wealth that you were able to use to further grow your family's businesses. And generational wealth is a big topic today because that's really the core of what is hurting the development of minority businesses. Can anybody speak to that? DeShawn, Lisa?
If I'm going by the question, how does that role play? I put it to like playing Monopoly, where and listen, whatever historical wealth, that's all great. You know what I mean? I'm not bashing
Understood.
that. You know what I mean? But it's like playing Monopoly, and I like the iron, so I'll just say I'm the iron. And the other person or other persons have been around the board 3 times. They own the red, Kentucky, all that, and they own the yellow, maybe even the green. And you haven't even rolled the dice yet. They pass go and everything else. And so there is, but also coming with that generational wealth is access, right? Because it's generational, so they may have access to relationships that you don't have, or connections that you don't have. So that generational wealth is bigger than just the money thing. It plays a role. It plays a role like the Monopoly board, but also gives better access and privilege sometimes too. Towards when you just starting out, I personally, it's a challenge. I think somebody mentioned welcoming challenges. I welcome the challenge, but when you're starting out, you kind of robbing Peter to pay Paul. It took me 5 years to pay myself. Now, I'm not complaining. Sometimes I do, but what I decided to do was reinvest everything I made back into the business, right? So I need a couple transactions, make a couple customers happy. I can get this iMac, right? And I did that starting in 2013. And so that's kind of the difference, the difference for me. You just had to, look, baby, let's pay the water bill. Let's give them half, right? I gotta go to Staples and get some folders or something like that, until you land that one big contract and things kind of go forward. So that's the difference to me.
Lisa, I assume this was a bit a problem for you because you have basically started with nothing.
Scrap. Because I got the old master tuxedo building and it needed 100% makeover. So, but I was willing to take that challenge when they told me to walk away, but it needed everything. And so I just worked multiple jobs, and then the little bit of money that I got from different agencies and stuff, I made that work. But I made it panned out and made it work. I mean, you just got to figure it out if you want to make it, and you will. If you're really desperate and want that glory of what you've been working for, you can do it.
Did you receive any help from banks or other funding
Well,
sources?
I just did Valley Partners the other day ago. I pick up a check today, right? Dad helped me get some drywall and paint today. But no, I have a contract with them that I do theirs every year. And I have other commercial contracts. I did, 31, 32 yards. I think y'all make 32. But it'd be hard. You just got to do your landscaping, do your flowers, do your balloons, do what you got to do. And that's what I've been doing for 10 years.
How many hours a week do you work?
All day, 7 days a week. And then I take care of my terminal brother too, so I make it work. It's hard, but it's worth it.
And you indicated that you hire at-risk kids
Yeah.
and also returning citizens?
I have some of my grandkids, and then I have other kids that have challenges, and they take all that anger and I make them work. I show them how to landscape. I show them how to do the mulching. I'm trying to teach them how to trim trees. They can't catch it yet, so I got to do it. But they be willing to learn. You got some that don't. You got some that just want to get out of trouble so they can be there. But then you got people coming out of jail that wants a second chance. I give them chances. But they got to be willing to want to work and do it themselves, though. But a lot of them do.
Generational wealth.
On anything. I know Terrell wanted to speak too, but I thought,
Oh, well, as far as generational wealth, I know nothing about that. I know nothing about that. I believe I do wish parents or grandparents, was able to set aside something like that. But I come up in the era where there was tragedies in the black households as far as drugs and all that good stuff. So the ability to accumulate any type of generational wealth that wasn't even thought of. All we knew was about was work. So as I was opening my business, I probably started with $15,000 in the mall, and it definitely looked like it was only $15,000. Like, and when I look back at pictures now, I'm like, dang, I can't believe we opened the doors with with this, looking at that. But so that's always a challenge, I think, in a lot of businesses, especially barbers. I think we just go into barbering feeling like we can open this just because we can cut hair, and you definitely got to have a different plan and a passion for what you do, because making money behind the chair isn't always what it seems to be. You know what I mean? So even though you might have a great clientele, when you think about opening a full business, especially going into a place like the mall or something like that, and again, I like taking those challenges because somebody said it earlier. You might have said being a trailblazer. I like for people to look and see it can be done. So
Does anybody want to say anything?
Okay, well, I'll speak on it since I'm still the one to still speak on it. As far as generational wealth is concerned, like you said, I don't come from any of that. I don't know nothing about it. I haven't seen it in any of my peers even, so it's not something that has been a prominence in our community. It's not something that the people that I went to school with ever had access to. It was never something that was around me, especially as I grew up. However, I think that in this moment now, I'm so determined to create it. I have a 9-year-old little girl, and she's bright as a light. She's so intelligent, and she always wants to learn. So I let her come down to the office. I let her work for me to make her money for her whatever expenditure she wants to get into this week. She's something new every week. But when I go to different events and stuff, I'm bringing her along with me because she wants to learn the business. She even says sometimes too, well, I'm gonna be busy when I grow up because I'm gonna be busy running your business and running my dad's business and all that. So having her alongside of me, there are times where I can't bring her in the room, but when I can, sometimes I do, because it's great for her, and it gives a drive to her to be able to see me operating in that capacity, as opposed to, I know some colleagues of mine, I went to a graduation party for someone this past graduation season, and he is the son of an a popular HVAC company here in the community. And I'm like, well, what's your plans now? He's like, well, I'm going to work for my dad. And he's been doing this for years, on end, and now he knows the ins and outs of the business. I'm sure he's been around for, all that amount of time, even though, it was from a different demographic and a different community, and it wasn't someone in the Black community. It just went to show that being able to start somewhere, was a big thing. So that's why now I take a lot of pride in making sure that I open those opportunities, not even only just to my daughter. I do hire young ones, to come in. It's cheap help sometimes, but it's also giving an experience. I get to groom their professionalism. I get to mentor them, in an aspect. I get to bring them on and show them a different route, because honestly, why is this not in the schools? Why are we not learning? I know entrepreneurship is such a new wave kind of now, maybe within the last 10 years or so, that everybody's like, I want to own a business. I want to run an entrepreneur. I want to do this. But at this moment now, why are we not incorporating this into our teachings of how we're going to integrate these kids into society? Why are we pumping up our kids with football? You're going to be a football star, and then if they don't call to college, what's the backup plan? Or even if I think that I went to Youngstown Early College, so it was go to college, get your degrees. And sure I did. I went to college, I got my degrees, and that was everything. But had I known the path a little bit better, I might have saved that $43,000 degree and, started something else. It could have been a trade. It could have been anything else. I think that we are undereducated, and it may not just be the black schools, because I teach entrepreneurship in schools that are not black, blackly prominent. So it's just an undereducation of the people that we're going to filter into society by kind of setting one path and not giving everybody an option to open up, which I like now that they have like the cosmetology programs. There's the HVAC programs, the drywall programs. You need your architects, but you also need your bricklayers. So I think that as a whole, the education is just not there, because when I did step into this sector too, and I was asked, do you have your projections? Matt, because Matt is one. He walked me alongside of this, calling me every week like, hey, Ashlyn, what's going on? I ain't heard from you. And I appreciate that so much, because I say it all the time. My loan packet drugged me by my ponytail. I had no idea what I was doing. Not that I didn't know, I just did not understand it. So I had to go and dig a little deeper, educate myself, ask more questions, things that if I would have known and had a little bit of even someone to have a wing up under or some mentorship myself, it would have, played a big part. So being able to step into a company as a child, into a family's company, like you said, you inherited that kind of stuff. That's a huge pivot. So
That's generational.
yeah.
But I think that the wealth is half of the equation. The wealth is the armor. It can protect you. It's not an art. It can be, but for the most part, learning the rules to the game is the weapon, because you can finesse your way through and get to the money if you got the rules. If you get the wealth, there's a lot of rooms that are still going to be closed to you unless you know how to operate with it and what the rules are to the new league. So it's like going from playing little league football to going to play high school. It's still football, it's still business, but the rules are changed. Oh, I can now hit you. It's not just, wrap them up and that's it. No, I can hit you for real, and so that's it with business. As you get that wealth, there's new rules to how you engage and how you have to navigate. And I hear it all the time from people who now have accomplished a lot in business financially is, oh, why won't they let me in this room? Well, it's because you're still moving this way. You got to pivot a little bit and understand, to operate in that arena, you got to change up. You got to stay authentic to yourself, but understand that things are a little bit different in different rooms. So getting the game is the other half that comes along with the generational wealth, where it's not just about the money.
Well, what are the rules? How do you get in the game?
Tell me.
If I could piggyback on Terrell's comments, and I think once you have that wealth, what happens is they don't know how to manage it. And we think just acquiring more things is to show the world, hey, I've made it, and it goes beyond that. So in addition to an attorney and an accountant, you need an advisor to say, hey, you know what? This is only going to last you so much time, and if you want to pass it on down the line, then it's like, okay, we're going to set some aside for the future and invest this money, whether it's back into the business or into the next generation. But it's understanding and having those, it's really who you surround yourself with is really the key. And it's that circle of trusted, and that's the key word, the trusted advisors who are looking out for your best interests and making sure you not only survive, but you thrive and sustain it going into the future.
You also cannot negate the fact that one of the biggest rules in this game is never operating off of self-funding. Always trying to figure out how to get other people's money when it comes to, not chasing your behind, in this. I think that that's another key thing where some people might be afraid of going into debt. Some people might be afraid of, what it'll look like to have a loan.
Or thinking
that
debt's a
could
bad thing.
What?
Not all debt is bad.
Right.
Absolutely,
Yeah, that's
absolutely.
Yeah.
So changing the narrative on that, that's one of the biggest, that's one of the
Make sure
biggest
that's on the
rules in this
record.
game.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny you said that. I was cracking up. I was talking to my brother because I think I might have talked to you about this. Good debt. There's good debt, and I'm just one of them people. I don't know if it's just how I was raised or whatever. I'm like, man, I don't want to borrow no money. Like, I'm just gonna work extra hard and make some money. And it didn't take for about a couple of years, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, maybe I will do this. But traditionally, it was the way I was brought up is, you don't borrow anything. Most of my family members hate to borrow money except for my son. I got to put an interest rate on him. But it was just the way I was brought up. So it was an uncomfortable thought for me to be like, and we got, our books are in order, our, we have a track record, we have like everything that would be okay to go in and have a conversation. But it was just that, oh man, I don't want to be borrowing no money or like that. And so that's one of the things too. And so you're not used to that. You just don't want to go in debt. You know what I mean? You don't, you just kind of, and you have the mojo like, well, I did start this, and and there's reserves in the bank account, and I can pay myself now that I don't need it, until you kind of think about it like, yeah, maybe I do need to, working capital, if you will, or some like investments and stuff. So sometimes it's just the way you're brought up. Like,
What are the other rules? What are the rules, Terrell? I mean, what are the other rules?
Whatever works, right, Terrell?
No, I mean, it all depends on where you're trying to go. I mean, I liken it to if you wanted a job and you're a young kid looking for a job at the mall, the rules to getting a job at Abercrombie are very different than the rules to getting a job at Hot Topic. So you have to present appropriately. And then once you get to a certain point, you can be Mark Zuckerberg and roll in a t-shirt and a hoodie, and people just know, all right, that's his uniform. So there are many rules, and it changes based upon the rooms. That is just it. I mean, and that's for any part of life. And for any job, but as you go up, it is different.
I just would like to make a comment that from my experience, I know when people come to a lender, it's a bit intimidating because you're kind of laying your life out for this stranger, and they're asking a lot of questions that you might not feel comfortable with, and it's a little bit hard to overcome. I know you said that you got some grants or got some, I mean, did you have someone helping you to find those resources?
Yeah, to
or-
look around and ask around and call around.
But
some
you did the majority of the work. You didn't
Yes.
have somebody saying, "Hey, Lisa, go check into this."
No,
or what.
nobody
See,
mentored me. No,
That's
none.
that's the big obstacle. She did the work, but if she had found the right advisor or mentor, it would have made her job a lot easier.
I see we're running out of time, but I did want to, something that you said, it seems to me that there's a great deal of mentorship that you all do. You have a foundation, you're trying to do right by people. It seems like successful minority businesses are mentoring other people, and that seems to be, I think that's somewhat unique. And I also want to say that I get the impression, and maybe this is a false impression, but I have a feeling that entrepreneurship is really catching on in the minority community. I think that we're seeing this more and more, even though there might not be minority or entrepreneurship education. I see more people coming up.
Absolutely. Barbering is the ultimate entrepreneurship. From the beginning of time, like everybody is their own business owner per se. You know what I mean? Just because they work they work under the umbrella of Excalibur Barber, doesn't mean they don't have their own business. And that's what I teach them. Like, go get your own LLC, build your own brand within this, because I'm going to work as hard as I can to make Excalibur known so that anybody who works at Excalibur, if they're out on the street, somebody say, "Hey, where you work at Excalibur?" They say, "Oh, yes, that's a great spot. I got some help for you." You know what I mean? I want that type of feeling for Excalibur, not for Kelan, but to build a brand where the brands within Excalibur can go and branch off and do whatever they want because they learn standards and they learn how to go to these banks and have their books in order and have their taxes and all that stuff in place. That's the kind of thing that I want, because we are entrepreneurs and nobody teaches us how to be a true entrepreneur, because everybody wants to just cut hair. But if you come with Excalibur, I want to be able to teach you how to run your business, why you need to present yourself in a certain way because everybody ain't gonna let you in the door. Like, I can't stand when people come into the shop and look like they just woke up. Come in, present yourself well, because we're in a place where you never know who's sitting in your chair. This man might want to lend you some money, but they got to know, like, oh, he's serious about what he does. And if you don't look like you're serious or try to learn and grow like you're serious, then he can't do that. Like, he's gonna look to the next person. He's gonna look to the next person because he's watching, and the barbershop happens to be an incubator for everything. So
But you have a foundation, and DeShawn, you're doing podcasts. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing to promote others.
Well, mentoring to me is like parenting. Like, I wouldn't be sitting right now if I would have had a mentor for the building trades. I'd be an electrician. That was my thing. But going to business, my mentor, my first mentor ever, God rest his soul, he passed in January this year, I believe, was Mr. Bob Hill, and he had an industrial machining design services. And when he became my mentor, I wanted to work in HR. Like, that was what I wanted to be. And I remember him telling me, "No, son, you're gonna provide solutions." And he always solutions. He had this deep voice. I wish I had it. I could be like voiceover. But he was my first mentor, and that was working with him. It was conversation every couple of weeks. He met me through Flex Temp. I was a temp worker, executive assistant, showed up in a shirt and a tie because I couldn't afford a suit. And he just walked up to me. He was like, "That's a nice tie, young man." And ever since then, we were just cool. So my mentors have been from him to mentors, some of them are in business, some of them in community housing development, some of them are real developers, because I've always been one of them people to it's not that I need you to mentor just the whole business. Some of that mentorship is for me to just be a good human being, to be a man and have these conversations. And in return for that, my mentees, I got 7 mentees. They're interesting, but I do that in a way that some of them want to start businesses. Some of them have no direction. Some of them, they have different things going on, and so I allot time out of my life. They're our greatest commodity, and I sit and have conversations with them. Don't always agree with them. Some of them want to be entrepreneurs, and to your point, like, candidly, man, why are you coming in here smelling like that? And so we have those conversations, but I try to give them exactly what I needed at that age, just some real good guidance. As far as the podcast studio go, just, the focus on that has always been unsung community heroes. And what I mean by that, just a brief story, there was some conflict in the neighborhood many years ago. It was 2, if you know Warren, like, everybody kind of related in some way, it's like most cities. But these 2 young men, like, if they would have had conflict, it would have trickled from street to street to street to street to street to street, because everybody's kind of. And this lady, I'll never forget her name. She invited them young men there. She made them sit down. This was outside. We was your neighbors. She made them sit down, Pepsi and some fried fish. And all she said was, "We ain't gonna have no problems. Y'all gonna straighten this out." And she sat for a minute just in case they did while out, and then she left. I don't think people realize how much of a de-escalation she did by having this conversation with these kids. That woman's a hero. Mm-hmm. That woman is a hero. The police wouldn't have been able to solve that stuff, So our podcast, and that's just a small thing. It's just unsung community heroes, because there are people in our cities, Youngstown and Mahoney Valley, that's doing some incredible stuff that you just really never hear of. And not that they want to be heard. Some of them just want to work, but they need to be amplified. So our podcast studio, at least our show, Salon United Presents, we highlight that. The podcast in general, anybody can come in and do their podcast, sit down. We got ladies that drink wine and men bash. There's a whole gamut of people who come in and do this thing. They just have to sit down and do their show. We take care of everything else. They can get up and go, and the production, all that is on our end. So yeah, that's that.
I'm going to ask for some final thoughts. Let's just go around the room briefly and have a few final thoughts. We'll start with Terrell.
No, I think it's constructive conversation. And I think it'll be very insightful for the readers, those who watch. I think that entrepreneurship
is not new for our community. We've always been, we may have used other words, whether it be hustling or grinding or whatever it may be. It's just that now with where we are, I think from a social media standpoint, it's getting more exposure to tell more stories of how we're doing it in different lanes. Education about the education that is out there is really important, whether that be looking at degrees differently, instead of just a degree, but being more well-rounded, and the networking that they wouldn't get from their normal networks being the value in a degree. And again, the community, not just from minority entrepreneurship standpoint, but community is important for all business leaders. You cannot be successful in a silo from a business standpoint. So I think that's the biggest thing that everybody should take away from it.
Thank you. Lisa?
I just think you should just work hard at what you want, and if it's what you want, it can happen. You just gotta put your whole heart and your mind to it, and just do what it takes. If you can't get the grants, keep on working. It ain't gonna kill you. My dad would have told me. But you just gotta keep the faith and keep the hope. It'll pan out. It'll work. If I can stick with it, anybody can for 10 years. But it's worth the fight. If you want it, you're gonna get it.
Thank you.
I think entrepreneurs are a special group of people. They have such passion for what they do, what they want to do. My advice is just surround yourself with good advisors. Go to your banker, go to your attorney, go to your CPA, whatever. Tap all the resources that are available, but you have to have good advisors that can direct you in the right way to get the resources that are available to you, because there's a lot out there. You just have to know how to go get it.
Thank you.
I would say, number one, if you're going to be an entrepreneur, whether you're a minority or what have you, whatnot, do your research on the product or the service that you're going to put out there. And I don't mean the research of your family saying it's the barbecue is delicious, you should open a business type thing. Like,
I sell dinners too
That
every Friday.
right?
That's my second hustle.
Do your research. It's not the sizzle that but do your research to find out if what you have is viable. The second thing I would say is to surround yourself with a superhero team: your accountant, your attorney, your CPA, and I'm going to add a tax strategist, your banker, and there's one more, but those things right there. And then the last thing I'd probably say is make sure that in this realm of entrepreneurship, that you build a network of people outside of what I've mentioned, but you build a network of people who can support you. And then lastly, of course, make sure you take time out from this journey of entrepreneurship. Take a break when you can take a break, because if not, it will consume you. And if you don't, you'll start to resent the thing that you loved at one time.
Yes, I like to say I have a standard of excellence. So if you're in entrepreneurship, I always try to say, have that standard of excellence in your operations, in your business, in your services. Have that standard. Be resilient, persistent, and consistent in the entire process. And I take pride in serving entrepreneurs in the Mahoning Valley. I say this all the time. The Valley is a special place. It's a special place with special people doing amazing things. So if I can be of any resource, of any funding opportunities, please see me.
I say find yourself a mentor that keeps you focused, keeps you on your strategy line, keeps your plan ahead. Don't go too far outside of what your original game plan is. Never plan B, always plan A.
Good line.
So I look at Terrell and his father. His father was a businessman, entrepreneur. And what we have to look at, especially, and I think they're the perfect role model in this regard, not that I'm trying to get any points, but he's paying it forward and passing it on. His dad is a role model, a mentor, and a father. And that's what's lacking in the community. And when you have that, those three in one, and to be able to instill that into his son, and then I'm sure if you have a family going forward, you're going to instill that into your child. And that's what we need in the community. Those role models who are doing it right, being successful at it, and then paying it forward. And that's really what everyone in this room can do, is pay it forward to that next generation. We're talking about what's lacking, but you have it in you already. It's just passing it on to the next generation coming behind.
Ashlyn.
Yes, and with that, I would say the education piece is just a huge component, whether it be the being able to get those things passed down to you from, your predecessors, being able to get that kind of field experience as the youth and everything like that, but also at the same time as an entrepreneur, getting yourself educated. There are programs and seminars all the time, going on. There's coaches out there, there's mentors out there, there's YouTube University will show you a lot of things. Now, it's not always correct, but there's sometimes you can learn things, from the people that are already doing what you do. So just being educated on what you do will help you to when you come into the areas like these rooms to know what you're talking about, being able to stand on your own, 2 feet and, present yourself in such a way to where you're able to have the conversations to get to access to what you need. And then also with that being said too, once you do reach a certain level, like you said, send the elevator back down, and bring up the youth, bring up the ones that are undereducated, bring up the new entrepreneurs that don't quite know what you're doing. I don't think I know everything, but I definitely got some nuggets that I can give out to people. And, I take my pride in making sure that in any capacity that I can, I do explain and give out those resources to people any way that I can. So just getting yourself educated in your field, in your industry, and in business at all, period, is going to be something that's going to help to pivot you and launch you in your career and your business.
Well, I want to thank all of you for coming. This has been an outstanding roundtable. Important information, stuff I didn't know, stuff a lot of our readers wouldn't know. And I want to thank Matthew and Vicki and Juan for coming in and providing their perspective, and for the entrepreneurs, Terrell, Lisa, DeShawn, Kelan, and Ashlyn, just great stuff. I'm so happy to be able to share your stories.